Hello, whisperers. Welcome to the channel. If you enjoy tonight's tale, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. It helps more than you know. Now, dim the lights, and let's begin tonight's story. The desert doesn't whisper the way forests do. Out here it scrapes. The wind claws at the sides of your car, sifts dust through the tiniest cracks, rattles loose pebbles across the hood like fingernails tapping. The silence between those gusts feels heavier than sound, like the whole world is holding its breath. I wasn't supposed to be here after dark. My plan had been simple. Drive through the four corners, film a few roadside shots for a folklore series, and be back in a motel before the sun was gone. But then the sunset hit. The sandstone cliffs lit up in molten red, shadows stretching across the valley floor like black rivers, and I thought, just one more angle, just a little longer. At the trading post earlier, an old man had warned me. His voice was flat, unshaken, like he'd said the same line 100 times before. Don't say its name. Don't answer what calls you. Leave before the moon is high. I nodded, smiled, promised to respect the land. And then I broke that promise as soon as I saw good light for the camera. When the sun dipped, the desert didn't fade the way a city does. It collapsed into blackness. 1 second you're surrounded by rusty stone and yellow grass. The next, you're floating in ink. The only things that existed were the beams of my headlights and the hollow thump of my heart in my chest. That's when I saw it. Something ran across the road ahead of me, just close enough for my brights to catch it mid-stride. At first it was on all fours, quick and low like a coyote, but at the edge of the ditch, it straightened. For a half second the silhouette was human. Then it was gone, swallowed by the dark before my mind could make sense of it. I tried to laugh, tried to tell myself it was a trick of the eyes, nerves, exhaustion. Then the radio died in a burst of static. My phone, resting in the cup holder, buzzed to life even though there was no signal. The screen flickered white and black, and from the speaker came a voice I knew. It wasn't distorted, it wasn't distant, it was my mother's voice, clear as if she were sitting in the seat beside me, and she said my name, not the way strangers do, not the way co-workers or acquaintances say it. She used the nickname only my family ever called me, one I hadn't heard since I was a child. A knock hit the passenger window, gentle, familiar. "Honey, open up," the voice said. The sound of home, the sound of safety, except my mother was 2 states away. My breath froze in my lungs. My reflection stared back at me in the glass, pale, wide-eyed, overlaid with the desert night. I didn't move. The knocking came again, just once. Then the voice leaned closer to the crack in the door frame and whispered, almost playful, "Say it back to me." That's when I realized the elder hadn't been giving me advice. He'd been giving me rules I'd already started to break. So now I'm recording this for anyone else foolish enough to wander past dark, to ignore a warning, to hear their name called from the black outside. There are only a handful of things that kept me breathing through that night. Learn them, remember them, because if you ever hear your name out there in the desert, you'll only get one chance to survive. Tip 1. Don't say the name. Names aren't labels out here, they're doors. You don't know which way they swing until it's too late. I learned that sitting in the driver's seat with the engine off, interior lights dead, the desert pressed to the windows like a held breath. The voice outside had already tried my mother's tone, soft and careful, the kind she uses when I'm exhausted and stubborn. It wanted me to talk. It wanted me to repeat a word I'd heard online 1,000 times, because the second I say it, I'm not just acknowledging it, I'm inviting it. I felt the syllables rise anyway, stupid and automatic, the way a song lyric pops into your head. The first sound reached my tongue and the car responded like a living thing. The doorframe creaked, the rubber weather stripping thinned with a dry squeal, and the driver's side window flexed inward as though something leaned its forehead against the glass to listen better. I swallowed the word and replaced it. The one outside, I mouthed. No sound, breath fogging the glass. Not the name you know, not the one you're thinking right now. Anything else? The pressure eased. The voice circled, claws skittering along paint I couldn't afford to fix, and tried a new angle. My own voice, perfect, bored, a little mean, whispered right at the seam of the door. Come on, if you know what I am, say it. Then a chuckle. Mine again. Exactly how I sound when a joke lands. Hearing your own laugh from the wrong side of a closed door feels like stepping into a mirror and realizing the reflection got there first. I kept my lips shut. The desert has rules. Silence is one of them. It tried to make me forget that. It tapped a rhythm against the glass. 3 soft knuckles that didn't quite sound like knuckles. A shadow rose, thin and high as a saguaro, then folded down until it was level with the handle. The metal clicked, not a jolt or a yank, just that polite, domestic tick a doorknob makes when someone is deciding whether to come in. My dog didn't bark. He went statue still, hackles up, eyes locked on the door seam like it was growing teeth. I wrapped my fingers in his collar until my knuckles burned and thought about how many times I'd said the real word into a microphone for fun, how many titles I'd drafted with it dead center for SEO, how easy it is to share a thing you don't understand, and how hard it is to get it back. The voice sighed, not angry, disappointed. Then it started humming a lullaby. Not my mother's, not exactly. One note was wrong, a half step off that turned something sweet into a thread pulled tight through my nerves. The wrongness is what saved me. I clung to it like a handhold in the dark. If I said the name, I'd sand that wrong edge off. I'd make it fit. Here's the part no one likes to hear. You don't need to say a name out loud for it to work. Typing, it counts. Writing it on your thumbnail so you won't forget the spelling counts. Whispering it into your sleeve counts. You give it shape. It takes the space you carved. So you build a different shape. I pictured the word as a thorn in my mouth and pressed my tongue against my teeth until the urge to speak hurt more than the need to answer. I focused on the tiny, boring things inside the car, the cracked seam on the steering wheel under my thumb, a grain of sand grinding under my heel, the faint citrus of an old hand wipe, I thought of anything that wasn't power, anything that wasn't a doorway. The window stopped flexing. The reflection that felt too close backed off a few inches. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. And after a long minute that let the stars burn holes through the windshield, the thing outside shifted its weight and slid away along the side panel, slow as a tide going out. That's what this tip is. Not bravado, not folk magic. Just the ugliest kind of discipline, refusing to feed a story that wants to eat you. Call it anything else, the one outside, the caller, the thing that walks. When your jaw unlocks and the urge to name it claws your throat raw, swallow it. The relief you feel when you don't is small and mean and life-saving. And if you already said it earlier tonight, if you tossed it around for effect the way I did, like it belonged to you, you stop now. You don't apologize to the dark. You don't try to undo it by saying it backwards or louder. You go quiet. You make yourself boring. You give it nothing else to hold. Because out here, names are handshakes you don't get to unshake. Don't offer your hand. Tip 2, never answer a familiar voice. It always starts soft, sweet. The kind of voice that makes your ribs ache with recognition. That night, sitting in my car with the dome light off, it tried my mother's tone again, clear through the glass. Honey, you're scaring me. Please, open the door. For a split second, I believed it. The cadence was perfect. The lilt in the middle syllable of my name. The catch in her throat she gets when she's worried. My hand twitched toward the lock before my dog growled low in his chest. A sound I'd only ever heard once before, when he was cornered by a stray coyote. I froze. My mother was 2 states away. Here's the truth. If it sounds like someone you love, it isn't. If it sounds like you yourself, even worse. It's pulling threads from your memory, weaving them into a mask. And when you speak back, you tie the mask to your face. I wanted to test it. Stupid, reckless. But I couldn't help myself. My family has a nonsense phrase, 3 made-up words we used as kids to prove it was really us on the phone. So, barely above a whisper, I mouthed it into the stale air of the car. Silence. Then, in my mother's voice, the phrase, repeated perfectly but too fast. No pause, no rhythm, just mimicry. The glass beside me groaned as something leaned closer, and then I heard my own voice, grinning through clenched teeth. Got you. My blood iced. The first trick is comfort. The second is flattery. The third is mockery. If one doesn't work, it'll try the next. What it can't do is feel. That's how you spot the cracks. I kept my mouth shut. Not a word. My dog trembled, his eyes locked on the seam of the door, waiting for me to break. The voice sobbed next, pathetic, desperate. It even imitated the way I cried once, alone, into a phone no one else answered. The sound nearly cracked me. Every instinct screamed to reassure it, to say, I hear you. But that's the trap. The second you acknowledge it, you hand it a piece of yourself, a piece it doesn't give back. So here's the rule. Don't answer. Not with words, not with knocks, not with your breath fogging the glass. If you hear your father, your sister, your child, even your own laugh outside your door, you do nothing. You sit in that silence and let it gnaw the edges. Eventually, the steps receded, slow, taunting, like it knew I was still listening. That night I learned answering the voice doesn't just invite it closer, it invites it in. And once it's inside, you'll never know where you end and it begins. Tip 3. Respect the land and boundaries. By the time I understood the second rule, it was already too late. I'd broken the third hours before. The warning had been clear. Don't say its name. Don't answer what calls you. Leave before the moon is high. But there was something else the elder at the trading post hadn't said outright, only hinted at when his eyes flicked to the prayer ties fluttering outside the window. Respect the land. Respect the signs. When I'd pulled off for my perfect shot, I hadn't thought about any of that. Just a dusty turnout off the highway, weathered posts planted in the ground, strips of sun-bleached fabric tied to them, rattling in the breeze. I figured they were old survey markers or someone's roadside memorial. I stepped past them without a second thought, tripod in hand, crunching over red gravel that looked brighter than blood in the fading light. What I didn't realize was that the moment I crossed those posts, I wasn't alone anymore. The desert went quiet around me, the kind of silence that doesn't belong in a living world. No bugs, no coyotes, no wind. Even the air seemed to thicken, like I was underwater. My dog froze at the car door, refusing to follow. He'd whined once, sharp and urgent, before retreating inside like he wanted nothing to do with where I was headed. I should have listened. Hours later, when I was trapped inside my car and the voice outside had already tried on every mask it could find, I felt it circling. Not just the car, me. The wrongness wasn't random. It was tethered to me. And in the reflection of the windshield, I remembered the prayer ties. I remembered brushing one with my shoulder, tearing it loose without even noticing. That was the moment it marked me. Not because I'd filmed it, not because I'd heard a story and said the name aloud, but because I'd stepped where I shouldn't have, past a line that wasn't mine to cross. You want to know how to survive? You don't cross lines you don't understand. Not fences, not cairns, not posts dressed with cloth. You don't pocket rocks or bones as souvenirs. You don't fly a drone over graves. You don't cut paths through canyons that locals tell you to leave alone. And you definitely don't brush aside warnings because you think the desert is just empty space waiting to be filmed. Because the desert isn't empty. It's crowded with things that wait for you to forget you're a guest. I sat in my car that night, sweat freezing against my neck, and I knew I hadn't just stumbled into danger. I'd invited it by stepping where I didn't belong, and every scrape of claws along the paint, every whisper pressed to the glass, was the land reminding me this isn't yours. It never was. If you respect the land, if you turn back when you're told, you might leave unnoticed. But if you don't, the land will notice you. And once it does, you won't walk it alone again. Tip 4. Light discipline saves lives. The desert is dark in a way cities can't prepare you for. No street lamps, no neon signs, no glow bleeding from a neighbor's window. Just a blackness so complete it feels like a second skin sliding over you. That night, Sitting in the driver's seat, I learned how dangerous even a flicker of light could be. When the knock at the window first came, I'd made the mistake of letting my phone screen light up. Just a reflex. Panic makes you grab for something familiar, and the glow was a small comfort in the black. But the moment that cold rectangle of light lit up my face, the voice outside went quiet. Not gone, quiet as if holding its breath. Then the window flexed inward, the glass straining against the pressure of something leaning in close. My reflection stared back at me on the screen, wide-eyed, sweat shining on my forehead, lips trembling, and in the glass, just beyond the reflection, I saw it, another outline, the suggestion of a face where there shouldn't be one, pressed close enough to fog the window. I killed the screen instantly, shoving it into my pocket. The darkness returned, thick, suffocating, but safer. That was the moment I understood. Light doesn't protect you here. Light betrays you. From then on, I moved differently. I didn't dare flick on the dome light when I reached for anything in the back. I covered the faint LED glow from the dash with a rag. Even the small green blink of the charger port felt like a beacon calling it closer. Every scrap of illumination had to be buried, hidden, controlled, because light in the wrong place makes you a silhouette, and silhouettes are invitations. Later, when I thought it had gone, I made the mistake of glancing toward the window again. A pale handprint bloomed against the glass, right where my head had been moments earlier. Not just a print, wrong proportions, fingers too long, each joint bending sharp in unnatural places. I hadn't seen it move there. I hadn't even heard the sound of skin against glass. The light from the half moon must have given me away. I dropped lower, sliding into the seat well, heart hammering so loud I was sure it would hear. My dog pressed against me, silent, rigid, eyes fixed on that handprint as though it were alive. I stayed that way for what felt like hours, forcing myself to breathe shallow and quiet. And in that silence I realized something. Light is a weapon, but only if you use it on your terms. That lesson saved me later. When it finally came time to leave, when running was the only option, I mapped the parking lot in my head. I remembered the pools of motion-activated floodlights, the way they triggered in sequence, and I used them like stepping stones, darting from one patch of brightness to the next, each flare forcing whatever stalked me back into the shadows. But sitting in that car, in the first hours of the night, I knew the truth of tip 4. Don't let light betray you. Don't let yourself become a silhouette. Control the glow, or it will control you. And when the desert is watching, one exposed profile in a window is enough to decide who gets pulled into the dark. Tip 5. Don't follow tracks. They won't stay the same. I made the mistake of looking down. That's how it always starts. Curiosity dressed up as survival. You think, if I can just see what it is, I'll know how to fight it. Out here, that thought can get you killed. The desert floor is a diary. Dust and sand remember every step, every dragging heel, every paw that scurries through the brush. So when the knocks faded and the whispers went quiet, I cracked the driver's door just enough to angle my flashlight downward. The beam cut across the dirt beside the car and my stomach flipped. A line of prints stretched into the desert. At first they were the small, neat tracks of a coyote. pads pressed clean, claws dimpling the crust. But 20 feet out, the tracks shifted. Paw became heel, pads became toes, bare human footprints, wide and deep, pressed into the sand as though whoever left them had been walking barefoot in the cold night. I told myself that was enough. Shut the door, lock it, stay inside. But my eyes wandered further along the trail, following the prints as they meandered between the sagebrush. And that's when I saw them change again. The bare footprints bled into a new shape, my own tread, my sneakers, with their worn-down heels and the faint starburst pattern at the toes. The prints weren't just mine. They were mirrored, reversed, as if I had walked that path already and was now watching myself return. The flashlight trembled in my hand. The prints looked fresh, too fresh. That was when the desert shifted around me. The silence got heavier, and the air pressed down, thick as wet wool. I realized that if I stepped out there, if I followed those tracks, desperate to prove what I was seeing, I'd never find my way back to the car. The tracks would lead me in circles, twisting and morphing, until I forgot which feet were mine, until I wasn't sure which body was mine. Behind me, my dog growled again, short, clipped, like he was trying to snap me out of the trance. His eyes weren't on the prints. They were on me, on my hand holding the flashlight. He knew better. So I pulled the door shut, clicked off the light, and buried my head against the steering wheel until my pulse slowed. Outside, the prints waited, and I swear I heard something laugh out there, low and dry, like sand spilling through fingers. Here's the rule. Don't follow tracks. Don't photograph them. Don't trace them with your finger. Don't cast them in plaster like some ghost hunter chasing clout. Out here, the ground lies. It will tell you a story in paw prints, in bare feet, in mirrored sneakers, and you'll believe it because people are wired to believe what they see in the dirt. But those stories aren't written for you. They're written about you, and if you keep reading them, sooner or later, the desert will decide you're just another character in its tale. And the thing leaving those prints, it'll be walking right behind you. Tip 6. Dogs are alarms, not shields. People always say dogs can sense things we can't. That night, I stopped thinking of it as a saying and started treating it as a law. My dog isn't small. He's an old cattle mix with a chest like a barrel and a bark that rattles windows. I always thought of him as protection, loyal, stubborn, fearless. Out there in the desert, with the voice outside circling my car, I learned the truth. He wasn't a shield. He was a warning system. And the warning wasn't for whatever stalked us. It was for me. When the thing first started knocking, he went rigid in the passenger footwell. No snarling, no lunging, just frozen. His eyes tracked the seam of the door like it was bleeding poison. Then, as the familiar voice called my name, his lips peeled back, and he let out a growl so low it barely made sound. More vibration than noise. He wasn't challenging it. He was telling me, "Don't you dare open that door." I almost did anyway, almost believed the cry that followed, high-pitched and desperate, the sound of a puppy left out in the cold. It hit every soft spot in me at once, because who doesn't open the door for a helpless animal? My hand twitched toward the handle, shame already welling up at the thought of ignoring it. And that's when my dog saved me. He didn't bark. He snapped his head up, nostrils flaring, ears pinned back, and he let out one sharp whine, a noise that was all pain and warning. His body trembled with the effort of not moving closer. His whole being screamed, "That isn't what it sounds like. That isn't real." I sat back. The puppy whimpered again, louder this time, the sound vibrating through the car door as if it were right outside. My dog pressed his body against mine, trembling so hard I could feel his bones shiver through his fur. He wasn't scared of being attacked. He was scared of me falling for it. Later, when I finally made my run to the gas station, it was that same dog who gave me the signal to move. Not a bark, not a growl, just a single sharp bark when the lights in the lot flared to life, as though he knew that was the only safe moment to sprint. His timing saved us both. That's what dogs are in the desert, alarms. They can't fight what's out there. They're not shields you can hide behind, not teeth that can scare it off. They are your early warning, your compass, the last piece of instinct reminding you when the human part of you wants to believe the lie. If you have a dog with you, trust them. If they refuse to move forward, don't force them. If they tremble at a doorway, don't open it. And if they whine at the sound of something familiar outside, know this: they aren't afraid of the thing at the door. They're afraid of you forgetting the rules. Tip 7. Guard names, photos, and personal traces. I always thought given something power was just metaphor. Turns out, it's the most literal warning I should have taken. Out there, boxed in by silence and glass, I realized how much of myself I'd already scattered across the world. Photos, posts, videos with my name front and center. I'd said the creature's name a dozen times into microphones, thinking it was just content, just another story to upload. But I hadn't thought about the trade, what I was giving away in exchange. That night, it came back to me. The first thump on the hood didn't even make me jump. I thought maybe the wind had tossed a branch. But when I lifted my head from the steering wheel, there it was. My old knit beanie, folded neatly, set dead center on the hood. I'd lost it earlier that day while scrambling for a shot on the rocks. I remember thinking it was gone for good. Now it was back, placed like a gift or an offering. Beneath it lay a stack of instant photos. My stomach turned as I slid the flashlight on, careful to keep the beam low. The pictures were of me crouched near the prayer ties I wasn't supposed to touch, me at the diner, chewing a sandwich, my back to the wall, me sleeping in the car, head tilted, mouth open. None of them were selfies. None of them were mine. I didn't touch them with my hands. I used a stick to push the stack into a plastic bag and sealed it tight. Even then, I couldn't stop staring at the backs of the Polaroids, half expecting words to bleed through. My dog whined at the smell of them, pressing himself flat against the seat like the photos carried something rotting inside. That was when I understood. Names, images, traces, they're all invitations. Your face on a lens, your voice bouncing in the air, a strand of hair snagged on a branch. It doesn't need your permission once you've given it that much. You've already carved out the shape. It just slips into the outline. I shoved the bag under the seat and forced myself not to look at it again. But I swear, even through sealed plastic, I could feel those pictures humming like they wanted to be noticed. Here's the truth of tip 7. Guard what's yours. Don't scatter your name, your likeness, your traces like breadcrumbs. Don't post your real-time location. Don't drop pieces of yourself where you can't take them back. Out here, every scrap of identity is tinder, and something in the dark is just waiting for the spark. That night I learned my reflection wasn't mine anymore. And once a thing knows your face, it doesn't have to knock. It already knows how to smile back at you from the glass. Tip 8. Don't hunt internet answers. Ask the right people. When panic sets in, your first instinct is to reach for a lifeline. For most people now, that means the internet. Type the fear into a search bar, scroll until something feels like an answer, cling to it. That instinct nearly killed me because the thing outside knew that too. I had 1 bar of service, just enough for my phone to stagger awake. The glow of the screen felt like a flare in the darkness, but my hands shook too badly to care. I typed half the name into the search field before the warning I'd been given echoed in my skull. Don't say its name. Don't write it. Don't even think it too clearly. So I typed, "How to survive in the desert at night," instead. Threads popped up instantly. Forums, creepypasta sites, videos promising ancient rituals to protect yourself. And mixed into them, I saw comments posted just minutes earlier. Too recent. Too personal. Say its name 3 times and it will leave you alone. Film it for proof or it won't count. Ask it what it wants. It only hurts the rude ones. I froze. Those weren't random. They were tailored, written for me. I could feel the pressure outside the car shift, the air waiting for me to take the bait. Then came the ping of a notification. My last video, the one I'd posted earlier that day, was getting new comments. I opened them with my stomach in knots. The top one made me drop the phone. It was my face, a frame grabbed from my own footage, but the eyes weren't mine. They were wide, dark, bottomless, and beneath it, the caption, "We see you." I yanked the SIM card out of the phone with shaking hands, tossed it onto the passenger seat, and powered the device down. The moment the screen went black, the weight outside eased. Not gone, not by any means, but like the tether had been cut. That's when I understood. The internet isn't neutral ground. Out here, it's another doorway. Every question you type, every picture you upload, every frantic plea for help is like standing in the dark and shouting your address. And the thing outside doesn't need GPS. It only needs the parts of you you're willing to offer. If you need help, there are only 2 options: trusted people, face to face, or the ones who already know because they've lived under the same rules all their lives. Tribal authorities, medicine people, the voices that won't tell you to chant nonsense into the night or light candles for clicks. But strangers online, strangers who answer too fast, who echo what you're already hearing whispered through your window. They're not helping you, they're echoing it. So here's tip 8. Don't beg the internet for survival. It doesn't answer you. It answers through it. And when it starts answering, you won't be able to tell whose fingers are on the keyboard. Tip 9. Leave before the moon is tall. The elder at the trading post hadn't wasted words. Leave before the moon is high. I'd nodded, half listening, already thinking about angles and thumbnails. Hours later, staring at the silver arc rising above the mesas, I realized how close I'd come to dying for not listening. The desert at night doesn't stay still. It tightens. The air itself grows heavier as the moon climbs, like it's drawing something up from the dirt with it. By the time the moon cleared the ridge, the knocking had stopped. The voices had gone quiet, but that didn't mean it was gone. Quiet is just another mask. I had two choices: stay sealed inside the car and pray the dark forgot me, or run while I still had the strength to move. The elder's warning pressed against my skull like a nail. Leave before the moon is tall. I mapped it in my head, 2 miles up the highway, a 24-hour gas station I'd passed earlier. Bright fluorescent lights, cameras, people. A place where the desert's rules thinned under human noise. If I could just reach it, I'd be among eyes that weren't tricking me. I leashed my dog. His tail stayed low, rigid, but he didn't fight me. He knew too. I gripped the handle and waited. Outside, the motion-sensing floodlights along the lot flicked on and off, one by one, like a rhythm. I realized they could be stepping stones. If I timed it right, I could run in the pockets of light, forcing whatever shadow followed me to scatter back into the dark. When the third floodlight snapped on, my dog barked once, short, sharp, the only sound he'd dared all night. That was the signal. I threw the door open and sprinted. Gravel crunched underfoot. The desert air burned my throat raw. Every hair on my neck screamed that something was running just behind me, low to the ground, too fast to be human. But every time I dove into a new pool of white light, the feeling faltered, as if it had to reset, circle wider, find me again. Halfway there, headlights flared. A white pickup slowed to a crawl. On the door, a faded BIA emblem. Relief hit me like a punch. A ranger, someone real. The window rolled down and a man leaned out. He wore the jacket, the badge, the calm expression. He called my name, my childhood nickname, exactly the way my dad says it when he's proud of me. I stumbled to a stop, chest heaving, sweat freezing against my skin. My father wasn't here. The man smiled. "Come on, son, you're safe now. Get in." My dog snarled, teeth bared, hackles standing like needles. That's when I remembered tip 2, never answer a familiar voice. I forced the words out through my dry throat. "What's the sign at the end of our street?" The man blinked. Too long. Too deliberate. Then his smile bent wrong, teeth too white in the floodlight. He didn't answer. He just waited. I didn't wait with him. I bolted past, dragging my dog with me, ignoring the gravel slicing my sneakers open. I didn't look back until the gas station's glass doors banged shut behind me, and the fluorescent hum washed me clean. That's what tip 9 is. Don't linger. Don't stall. Leave before the moon is high. If you hesitate, it doesn't matter how many rules you followed before. The desert doesn't forgive lateness. And if someone offers you a ride, calling you by name, you better have a question ready that only blood can answer. Because sometimes the thing waiting for you has already dressed itself in a smile you trust. Tip 10. When dawn comes, close the loop the right way. People think dawn is safety, that the first spill of light over the horizon means everything skulking in the dark scatters back into myth. That's the lie that gets people killed. When the glass doors of the gas station shut behind me, and the hum of the fluorescents burned away the silence I'd been drowning in all night, I felt that lie press against me. Relief flooded in too fast, too easy. But the old man's words still sat in my chest. Leave before the moon is high. He hadn't said a thing about dawn. I stayed until morning, sat hunched in a hard plastic chair by the coffee station while truckers shuffled in and out. My dog never closed his eyes once. He kept staring at the glass front doors, ears twitching every time they hissed open. When the sun finally pushed up over the mesa, I thought I was safe. That's when the woman arrived. She didn't look out of place, just an older woman with silver hair braided down her back, dark eyes that looked like they'd seen too much. She walked straight to me, no hesitation, like she'd known where I'd be all along. She didn't ask what happened. She didn't want proof or footage or a story. She asked only one thing. Where were you? I started to explain. I wanted to talk about the voice, the tracks, the way the windows bowed under pressure. She raised her hand before I could get a word out. You were told to leave, she said. Not a question, a sentence. So now you will. She gave me instructions, not details, not rituals, just places I wasn't to return to, roads I wasn't to drive, words I wasn't to say again. She told me to go home, to forget the lure of filming the desert at night, to stop chasing the thing I thought would make a better story. It wasn't advice, it was an order. And I listened. Because tip 10 is this: when dawn comes, you don't pat yourself on the back and pretend you beat it. You don't go hunting closure or answers. You don't share every detail you think will make people believe you. You close the loop the right way, quietly, respectfully, without fanfare. The sun doesn't erase what hunts you, it just hides it, gives you one more chance to leave. If you waste that chance, if you stay out past the warning, if you keep filming, naming, bragging, it won't need the night to find you anymore. When I finally drove east, the desert shrinking behind me, I kept my mirrors tilted down. I didn't want to see if something was pacing the car in the heat shimmer. I just left. Because you don't win against the thing outside. You don't outsmart it, outfight it, or outlast it. You only survive by shutting the door it tried to open and walking away before it realizes you haven't closed it tight enough. People always ask the wrong question. They want to know how to beat it, how to kill it, how to turn the tables on something that isn't supposed to exist. But there is no winning out here, not the way they imagine. You don't destroy it. You don't trap it. You don't parade it on a live stream to prove you were right. All you can do is survive, and survival only comes if you starve it of what it craves most. You, your voice, your name, your face, your belief. That night in the desert taught me that every rule is just a variation on one truth. It can only use what you give it. If you give it a name, it holds your tongue. If you give it an answer, it wears the voice you love most. If you give it your face, it will show it back to you from the glass. If you give it your traces, hair, footprints, photos, It will follow you home. And if you give it time, if you wait past the warning, it will take the rest. I broke rules. I trespassed. I lingered. I nearly spoke when I shouldn't have, nearly answered when I knew better. The only reason I'm alive to tell you any of this is because I stopped feeding it just long enough to run. I didn't win. I didn't outsmart it. I just closed my mouth, cut the cords I'd tied myself with, and left before the moon climbed too high. That's all survival really is. Getting smaller, quieter, harder to hold, walking away without looking back. But here's the part that gnaws at me even now, days later, in the safety of noise and city lights. I still gave it something. My silence wasn't perfect. My thoughts weren't guarded. Somewhere out there in the scrub, beneath the ridges and prayer ties I disrespected, something still carries the sound of my name in a voice that isn't mine. And every so often, always near midnight, always when the world goes still, I hear my phone vibrate on the nightstand. No caller ID, just my name flashing on the screen, spelled the wrong way, stretched too long on the last syllable. That's when I remember the last rule, the one the elder never said out loud, the one I only understood too late. You don't win. You just delay the night it finally uses what you've already given it. So if you hear your name in the dark, don't say it back. If you hear someone you love at the window, don't answer. If you see your own footprints leading away from you, don't follow. Respect the land, respect the rules, and leave before the moon is tall. Because once it has enough of you, it won't knock anymore. It won't need to. It will already be inside, breathing down your neck,